tonight is all about food cravings. One major thing that disrupts our body's nervous system and ability to maintain health is food. And that's why we're talking about it tonight. And food cravings will always be there. The temptations for bad food will always be there, but let's try to give us some tools. Let's think about it. Let's work through this. So what I want to dive into with these cravings tonight are how important it is to start to get a hold on what we're putting in our bodies. I have just a simple story. I had a patient, Barb, and Barb had chronic head pain. It would come and go, but I finally convinced Barb, because we tried everything else, that she's got to really look at her diet. Said, hey, Barb, there's definitely something you're putting in your body that is causing a negative reaction and causing irritating, I believed, her sinuses and inflaming them completely. So due to her desperation, she said, yeah, doc, I'll do this detoxification, which just meant eliminating a lot of stress from her diet. Getting rid of all fake, devitalized foods, getting rid of her Diet Coke. We'll circle back to that in a second. But about 3 or 4 days in, her body started to tell her that it was really missing what was normally put in there. It was craving, miserable. I said, doc, I'm doing what you're saying and I feel horrible. Like, this is the worst pain I've ever felt. I just can't. I don't know if I can do this. I can't go on. By the time I called her back, Barb answers the phone and says, oh, doc, I figured it out. I feel so much better. I said, oh, good, Barb. What did you do? I just had a Diet Coke. Unfortunately, Diet Pop is neurogenic, toxic. But what happened was her body had such a strong craving and such an addiction that Diet Coke kind of almost relieved a lot of her, we'll call them withdrawal symptoms. But cravings are real, and therefore, everyone deals with them in one way or another. And we're going to dig into why you deal with these cravings, the psychological reasons, the physical reasons. But we're also going to hopefully give you some tools. And if I don't give you enough tools, look for the toolkit. They're all there, all right? So food cravings, let's talk about them and understand them a little bit better. Our goals are going to be to understand the reasons for the food cravings, hopefully learn some natural strategies to reduce them, and we're going to help you guys set some personal goals. Hopefully set these tonight. A food craving itself is defined as an intense desire to eat a specific food, usually high in sugar, fat, or salt. What causes them? Simply, it's physical or psychological factors are going to cause these cravings for us, and they're going to come and affect our brain. Ultimately, our brain is telling us we need something. The key here is to understand why our brain is telling us these things. So let's go kind of into the physical cravings a little bit. Physical cravings are real. Your body, if you had no idea about anything, and you just ended up out in the wilderness, your body's going to tell you what you need. If you're cold, you're going to start to shiver. You're going to know, I need to cover myself. Your body says, hey, you're cold. Your body would tell you if you're hungry. If you're lacking certain nutrients, have deficiencies, you're obviously going to need certain things to help fill that void. One example for just a simple nutritional deficiency that I think a lot of people can relate to, chocolate. A lot of people crave chocolate not just because it's sugar, but because it has magnesium. Magnesium is deficient in about 70 to 90% of our population, and it's highly found in chocolate. A lack of sleep actually causes your body to crave sugar, because when you don't sleep, you don't convert glycogen well, which means that it gets fuel from your body and puts it in your muscles. So if you're not sleeping well, your body's not fueling your muscles up with glycogen, then it needs another source of sugar, ultimately, that runs our whole body, which means that you're going to crave sugar to get that into the blood so the body can use it for energy. So lack of sleep will cause physical cravings just as much as dehydration. Dehydration sometimes is one of the biggest causes for overeating. You're not hungry, you're thirsty. So number one is keeping yourself hydrated, getting a wide variety of nutrients. Those are some of the biggest things here. So realizing that your body will try to get you into balance. And sometimes where we're getting those nutrients may also, though, be giving us other problems, just like chocolate, other things. Like your blood sugar is one of the biggest factors that affect your mood, that affect your energy, that affect headaches, that affects a number of things. So how do you maintain that? We're going to get into maybe some of those toolkits, but maintaining a good, healthy blood sugar level is very important. This is going to kind of help you in understanding a little bit about our food supply here. The fact is that back in the 70s and 80s, when tobacco industry started getting a lot of pressure and not being allowed to addict everyone in the world to cigarettes, at least in the United States, commercials were being taken away, they couldn't do different things, so they took all the money they had made on people addicted to cigarettes and they used the same technology, bought food, pretty much all the food companies, and utilized what they knew about making cigarettes addictive and made food addictive. And that's what kind of gets into our next thing, is these psychological cravings. Our food is very addictive. These chemicals that were used, these additives that were used to make us addicted to food, are pretty much banned in most other countries, but allowed here. And I know there's some changes hopefully coming on that will change, but the truth is your body knows where these things are and knows how to try to get them right now. So it's kind of like you've been hooked, okay? So don't feel that you've just totally failed. Most food, if it's packaged or processed, has something in there when it says natural flavorings, or there's all kinds of words they'll use to cause your body to crave certain things on a psychological or a dopamine level, and we'll get into that a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about the psychological cravings. The psychological cravings come from a couple big categories. First off, they're going to be triggered typically by stress. I think everyone's heard of stress eating, emotions, or memories. Example for that might be craving ice cream, after a stressful day, because your brain links it to comfort and relaxation. If your body's overwhelmed, then our brain says, I am deficient in happy chemicals. And what it does is easily knows that ice cream temporarily boosts my mood. And so there's an association between eating and comfort and relaxation. This can also be habitual. You might have always come home pretty stressed. And every time you get into your house, you know that this ice cream's here. And so there comes a habit. One example of this would be very simple. Why is popcorn at the movies? Who knows? But someone decided popcorn should definitely go with movies. So if you go to a movie, habit says you must have popcorn. It's always been there and it will always be there. It's fat, it's salty, and it can be some sweet depending on what you're putting on this. And that's how our bodies psychologically become addictive to foods. And so the more that those foods maybe have been altered to make you more addicted to them anyway, and then you have habits that can combine those are the things that are the hardest to break. We can fill some nutritional deficiencies if they're physical. The psychological ones are even harder. Dopamine is the chemical messenger in the brain that's linked to pleasure, motivation, and reward. If you want to learn more about it, there's a book written called Dope Sick. And it talks all about America and how we're dope sick. How we are completely addicted to dopamine and short hits of dopamine rather than the long-term, slow serotonin enhancements. When you get adjusted, just so you know, it does increase your serotonin. So when your body is getting adjusted, there are studies that show that there's more serotonin in the system. Dopamine is that pleasure motivating chemical. It's especially in foods high in sugar, fat, and salt. Your brain releases dopamine when those are there, reinforcing that behavior and making you want to repeat it. But your body does need fat. It does need carbohydrates. It does need salt for balance in your minerals. Your body is attempting to help you to stay alive, but this is only when food was scarce. When it's overly plentiful, then our bodies start to utilize it to cope. And that's kind of one of the biggest challenges we have here. Processed foods, they're designed to hijack the reward system. These processed foods hijack it. It's like supercharged. In that Dope Sick book, there's a kind of levels of how much dopamine are released. And I think that chocolate's like a 30 out of 100 scale. I think they put the 100 scales like intercourse or something like that. That's like 100. So there's chemicals though in our foods that are over that 100. And so there's no surprise that the drugs that are prescribed to us, the foods that are there are hitting us way above kind of a natural pleasure center. But the key is just understanding that these cravings come along with psychological and physical cravings. And a lot of times in our society, we are overfed and undernourished. Just want you to remember, we're overfed and undernourished. So your body may be physically craving a lot of nutrients, and it knows it may be able to get them from some red meat or these grains or these vegetables, but because we are deficient in our nutrients in most of our food. Even if you're attempting to eat some of those things, you might not be getting enough. So you have to almost overeat just to get the right amount of nutrients. The brain is key. How do we start with brain-based eating, brain-based changes to our diet? How do we do detoxifications that are brain-based? We're going to get into that just a moment. Our next fact, it's just kind of scary, and ultimately what I want you to understand is how we have been hijacked, is that half of the US is pre-diabetic or has type 2 diabetes. These happen from our foods. Pre-diabetic or diabetic, type 2, half of our population. And Alzheimer's is now being labeled as type 3. So sugar ultimately, or the ingestion of too many carbohydrates and sugars, start to affect our bodies. And our society is becoming more and more sick. If we're trying to help someone become less stressed, a lot of times, not only is the adjustment my first step, the second would be starting to change that diet, the blood sugar and those chemicals. So know that if we follow the recommendations or what we see happening in general, this is where it goes. Diabetes and Alzheimer's. So let's get into a little bit of the meat here. And this is, again, ways we can look at it on our toolkit. But we want to help you control cravings naturally as best as we possibly can. So the first is we want to regulate the physical system, number one. Make sure that you're getting enough protein. It's kind of number one typically. Plant-based fibers and healthy fats. Why? All those things are going to help to balance blood sugar. Our meals definitely always should have some protein in them. Fiber is very, very beneficial, and the best fiber you can get is from plants. Vegetables. If you looked at calories and you said, man, I'm really trying to reduce my calories, it's mostly fiber. Indigestible fiber feeds good bacteria in your gut and slows digestion. That's why there's a big craze on the oats, because oats have a certain amount of digestible fiber, and they were linking that to lower cholesterol levels. Why? Because cholesterol is mainly an effect of stress and sugar. You stress out your liver and your body, and you eat too much sugar, your cholesterol levels raise. It's not about eating egg yolks or too much fat. It's all about the carbs. But what they found when people would eat the oats had a little more fiber in their diet because there was some oats, and that helped slow digestion. Still, I would say fruits and vegetables are where you want to find the fiber, not just oats. Fats help you stay full longer. If you do feel like your meal goes through and you're hungry really soon, your body's saying that what you ate was out of balance, that you didn't have good proportions of carbs and fats and proteins to some degree. And so if you're really feeling super hungry right after a meal or fairly soon after a meal, you need to have satiety for a couple hours, easily, at least 4. And if you don't, then there's something out of balance. So try to add some good fats, healthy fats. What are some good healthy fats? Olive oil, not to be heated though. I'd really caution heating the olive oil. A lot of people do. I would not suggest heating the olive oil. I'd use that. I'd make your own dressing. So if you're wanting one thing to do to stay away from chemicals and bad oils, make your own dressings. We've got to eat those basics. So if you sit down for a meal and you don't see all those things on your plate, I want those to be your plate. If you're like, hey, what's the biggest change? Make it just what I said. Have protein, some good vegetables, and some healthy fat. Nope, I didn't say anything about carbs. If you have some weight to lose, or you're trying to lean up and you're trying to get your body back in balance, I would say more of a ketogenic way to eat is probably best. I'm not against carbs. There's definitely people. I run pretty high, my metabolism. I need some carbs, but I still don't need a ton. We want a slow drip in our bloodstream. We don't want to boost. Enough water. Like I said, number 2 would be enough water. Maybe that's number 1. There's a book, The Body's Many Cries for Water. Look that one up if you just want to know how water can cure everything. But drink enough water, and I beg people to look at putting minerals in their water. And the reason for that is we're mineral deficient in all of our fruits and vegetables. And most water if you're just drinking it anymore, it's probably all filtered, which is good. I'm glad it's clean, but you've got nothing in it. It's devitalized in a certain way. If you went out and at the stream, don't drink our stream over here. All right, I'm just going to tell you, don't drink that one. But if you go in the mountains and it's running over rocks, you're pulling in from the rainwater, you're getting minerals from the environment. We don't have that. So you can buy minerals. We have them here. You can buy from any health food store. They're liquid. Just drop 10 drops in 32 ounces of water. You've remineralized your water, and you'll actually find you stay hydrated longer. Get enough sleep, like we said. You don't sleep, your body doesn't detoxify. Your body then doesn't actually produce the chemicals and store them in the tissues that you need. So you're going to start craving things because you don't have the energy. Exercising is huge. Take pauses. Leverage distraction. They found that if you could wait 5 to 30 minutes on any kind of craving, typically it's gone. Most cravings, not all, most cravings are gone 5 to 30 minutes. 5 to 30 minutes. Take a pause. Last thing I would say is, hey, if you want us to support you and give you a program that says, hey, this is what you should eat. These are the supplements. There's one supplement we use. It's called the Shape Reclaim program. It's unbelievable. It works on the nervous system. It's called nanomolecular. It's homeopathic. It is a system that will help curb your cravings by working at your brain level right away. It will help the detox reaction, like poor Barb, who wanted her Diet Coke. It will get rid of that to some degree, and it's very natural. It doesn't interact with other medications you might be taking, and it's only one thing. It's liquid drops go under your tongue 3 times a day. Very simple. And so when we're doing those things, this SHAPE program, we have someone who's also keeps you accountable. So we have someone that meets with you every week. We look at your urine. We do a system in which the first month is a big detox. You're changing your diet strongly. If you wanted to be a really good 5K runner, there are times you're going to run a 10K. And these kinds of programs are to kind of make you run the 10K. They're to challenge your brain and your body. Do things that are uncomfortable. Change only happens when you're uncomfortable. If everything was easy, then we'd just be addicted to dopamine all day, and that's what happens. We think we're entitled that we don't have to work, but we do, unfortunately. Health doesn't come easy, but it's easy to come by if you take simple steps every day.